an obsessive focus on detail. Also on display, for the last time, was a different breed of CEO, one who exhibited personality traits, narcissism, whimsy, disregard for the feelings of others, that society normally dismisses as negatives. But are they? For the way Apple does business and the way its executives manage the company fly in the face of years of business school teaching, begging the question, is Apple's success unique, or is Apple onto something the rest of the business world ought to be emulating? It is fitting that Jobs' last official act was reviewing an iPhone, given that Apple's reinvention and domination of the smartphone category 4 years earlier had demonstrated the company's and Jobs' singular strengths. When it launched the iPhone in 2007, Jobs had turned Apple upside down to make it happen. He envisioned the iPhone as a revolutionary device combining the convenience of a smartphone with the music storage and listening capabilities of an iPod. If marrying these two inventions wasn't enough of a challenge, there was the additional pressure that the resulting device needed to have a design snob-worthy look, a user-friendly software interface, and a wow factor. Touch-sensitive glass screen, anyone? The iPhone team at the time already was stretched thin. Its very existence was putting strains on the rest of the company. Raids on other Apple groups, Macintosh software development in particular, had ground other projects to a halt. The latest version of the Mac's operating system was delayed because the engineers writing the code had been switched to iPhone work. Resentment simmered among employees who were not chosen for the project because suddenly their electronic ID badges stopped working in areas that had been cordoned off and reserved for iPhone development. All Apple products are created equally. Some are more equal than others. An elite within an elite had been created, and the push to finish the iPhone was like an all-out mobilization for war. Engineers used macabre military terminology at Apple to describe the phase of product development when a launch approaches, the Death March. It is not every CEO who could ask and expect his most talented employees to work through the holidays, as Jobs did for years when the annual Macworld trade show was held shortly after New Year's Day. But Jobs loomed larger than life for Apple employees. He had founded the company in 1976 with his chum, Stephen Wozniak. He spearheaded the development of the Mac in the early 1980s, quit in disgust in 1985 when the CEO he'd selected to run the company reduced his authority, and returned triumphantly in 1997 to rescue a beleaguered company. Nearly a decade later, Apple reigned as the brightest light in the constellation of personal technology companies, and its lodestar unquestionably was Steve Jobs. Even when he wasn't walking through the hallways of Apple, Jobs was a visible CEO. Sure, his office in the One Infinite Loop building was off limits to most of the company, yet Jobs was supremely present in the life of Apple. Employees of all stripes saw him in the company cafeteria, usually chatting with his design chief and alter ego, Jonathan Ive. They would spot him walking around campus, and they would see his car parked in front of IL1. They watched his keynote presentations as eagerly as the public did so they could understand where their company was headed. Jobs may well have been unapproachable, and odds were that typical employees would never attend a meeting with him, but they believed that whatever they were working on would be seen eventually by Steve, for all flowed up to him and his fingerprints were on everything important that Apple did. On the eve of the original iPhone launch, Jobs was at the peak of his faculties and the top of his game. He had seemingly beaten cancer, having survived the removal of a malignant tumor from his pancreas 2 years earlier. He had disclosed little about his illness, other than that it wasn't the predominant kind of pancreatic cancer, which kills quickly. In his unvarying outfit of black mock turtleneck, Levi's blue jeans, dark socks, New Balance sneakers, and 1960s-style round spectacles, Jobs was fit and robust, his salt and pepper beard full and just a tiny bit bushy. Having turned 50 2 years earlier, Jobs was on a tear. Apple had remade the music industry with the iPod and the iTunes music store. That year, Jobs had